Well, good morning, good day, and good evening, wherever you are. Thanks for tuning in, folks. And if you can hear me, please put a comment. If someone could just put a comment in the chat, that'd be great. Haven't used this live stream before, so appreciate your help. And hoping that the sound is clear. Like, can you hear me clearly? I didn't bring a microphone, so yeah, if someone could write something in the chat box, that would be handy. Otherwise, I'll just proceed with a bit of a report on last night's event. So it was pretty spectacular. We had 240 people in the cinema, full house, and it was just all round a huge success, the event. Very exciting, very emotional, just an electric atmosphere, having everyone there, and having the panel members who are in the film, Dean Yates, David McBride, David Shoebridge, Niraj Lal, who had all travelled there. Hello, Marta. Hello from Australia. Yeah. And yeah, just so grateful for them to make the trip to come down. I'm actually just downloading some photos from the event. We had photographer, videographer there, and I'll be sharing all of that pretty soon. I might even try to share a few photos as we're chatting if I can figure out how to do that. Hi, Mike. Yep, looking forward to your interviewing, talking with you on your radio. Thanks for tuning in. So yeah, really exciting event, especially for me as a first-time filmmaker. It kind of just really surreal, the whole thing, to have the project finished, and then to have it in the first festival that we entered, and then to win an award was just mind-blowing. And then yeah, as I said, like the response from the audience was just tremendous. How's the sound? Can someone just comment? Can you hear me pretty clearly? Didn't bring my headphones or anything. Yep, you can hear it all right. Good. Let me know if it's loud enough. So yeah, perfect sound. All right, good. Thanks, Marta. So yeah, like there was a few things that I was really interested in seeing the response in the film from the audience, being the first time that we showed it to a large audience. I guess the most exciting thing or interesting thing was how would people react at the end, because a lot of documentaries, of course, when people when we get to the end of the film, people will just be stunned and just be digesting the information. But the way that the film was constructed was with the intention to sort of give it a lift at the end. We didn't want people to sort of walk out feeling sad, depressed. It's a really tragic film, of course. It really, I mean, it's got the collateral motor footage and other footage in it and other images. It's a punishing film. It's hard to watch. It's also tragic. It's sad. All the details of Julian's, the persecution of Julian. So yeah, I mean, so I just wanted people to be inspired at the end. I wanted them to just get a bit of a lift and sort of feel like there is a solution to this predicament, that we can potentially free Julian if we cooperate and all sort of do something and say something. And so there's these inspiring lines at the end in the final chapter. Powerful music, powerful images. There's an animation. I won't give away too much for those who haven't seen it yet. But yeah, like, how will people respond at the end? And I mean, there was so much interaction from the audience throughout, and I didn't expect that. there was probably 4 or 5 parts where in the film where the audience applauded on particular statements and moments of the film, and that was a surprise. That was really great. But when we got to the end of the film, I'm just kind of really interested how people respond. Will they clap? Will they groan? And anyway, yeah, people. I mean, it was a standing ovation. Everyone off their seats and cheering, and even there was some chanting going on, and yeah, so that was just a real buzz to get that response. You know, like making a film like this it's a huge effort. 2 years and 2 months of non-stop work. We had 1 week off um, during the process, and something like 7,000 hours. A lot of 70-hour weeks, especially getting towards the end. You know, there's a big rush to get to meet the deadline for the festival. And yeah, so once the film is out and then you're getting a response and feedback from people, it was just tremendous just to get some response and just kind of feel like it sort of worked. Yeah, just a huge buzz. I'm still kind of the next morning pretty excited and just really pleased about the whole thing. So yeah, that was just the best thing to get that response at the end and all the nice comments. People, a couple of people came out of the audience, just came and gave me a big hug. Rain, who helped promote the event and very active in the Melbourne scene. And then some random guy, I can't remember his name, but he just came up and said, "I don't know you, but I just want to give you a hug." And that was just awesome. I actually really needed one. So yeah, that was just really special. Yeah, so if anyone has any questions about plans for the film, or you know, also some general stuff about Assange and the situation, because I've obviously done a fair bit of research. I wouldn't say I'm expert level on it, but a couple of years of pretty heavy reading and research, and you know, I certainly have learned a lot about it that I had no idea about before the project. So happy to answer any questions if people are sort of new to the situation and sort of have anything. I mean, it is a very complex case, and that's what someone said. I think it was Dean Yates, the Reuters journalist who appears in the film, and he's an author and journalist. He came up to me after the film and said, you know, this is such a complex situation, a complex issue, difficult for people to understand, and you really broke it down into a really ordered, simplified way for people to digest, and that was really great to hear, because that was one of our big aims. Like, how can we educate people to help them sort of wrap their head around this whole situation. Something that I've noticed is whenever you open up a journalistic article, a news article about Julian, and sort of start reading, like you're looking, say you're a newbie and you're looking for an update, like there's a headline that catches your attention and you're like, okay, let's see what this article is about. And after a few sentences, you get lost. There's jargon and complicated words like espionage and you know, the Espionage Act and whistleblowers and all these political jargon, and people just get lost. Like, how do you make sense of it from trying to read a news article? So that was one of our aims with the film, was just to try to make it accessible, try to just break it down as much as possible, but without losing the important detail, the complexity, all the issues. I mean, we couldn't cover every issue, but we tried to cover the most important ones and organize all that information. We did 25 interviews for this documentary and ended up with 25 hours of interview footage to then select from, in addition to the archive footage of Julian. I must have gone through probably 50 hours of Julian's speeches and interviews to make some selections to suit the film. And a lot of footage, and you got to get that down to about the 2 hours, and make those selections, but then organize all of the statements, all of the information to make sense, to be accessible so that people don't get lost. So that was probably half the editing process. It was 600 hours of editing, and half of that process was just sorting all the data, all the statements, to try to make sense. It was nice to hear from Dean Yates saying that it was sort of easy to follow, logical and sequential, and that's if that's the effect that people have, especially if they're new to this topic, to this situation. If they can make sense of it in a 2-hour period, that would be terrific. It would mean that someone can walk in with just basically no knowledge at all, and in 2 hours get a good sense of what's going on, the injustice, what it's about, the wider issues. That would be a win if that's what we can do. Thanks for all your comments, folks. I'm reading those, and so I guess I'll talk a little bit about what happens next. As a preface, obviously, this whole process, we try to do it as fast as possible, but there's a balance between the end product of the film, how effective it is, how powerful it is, versus how quickly we get it out. It's such a full-on, time-consuming, laborious process to make a film, and I guess these days it's kind of getting easier for anyone to make a documentary. Like, this is my first documentary. The camera technology is a lot better. Editing software is pretty user friendly, and I guess you could say it's kind of these days it's sort of easy to make a documentary if you're not concerned about the impact, if you're not sort of ambitious about is it going to be powerful, is it going to affect people, is it going to actually invoke change. So it's kind of easy to make just a decent documentary or an all right documentary, but it's very difficult to make a good documentary. You really have to bring in so many creative elements, and that's something that we, once we got about 6 months into the project, we're like, okay, can we actually make this a really good documentary? Like, what are the ingredients of a good documentary? So anyway, it's a balance between the ambitions of the project versus the time that it's going to take, and the resulting outcome. Is it going to be powerful and effective? So where we're at now, obviously we had the festival cut, which was it's a somewhat finished version of the film, but there are still a few little things to do. There's a few little glitches that we need to fix up, technical things, the sound. There's a few little things to do with just balancing the sound, and we have to make the all-important final trailer. Some of you might have seen the teaser, which is it's an 8-minute thing that we threw together, kind of like a sketch or a draft, whereas the final trailer needs to be shorter and punchier, just maybe 2.5 minutes. And that's what is really ultimately going to potentially pull people into to attract them to watch the film in cinemas and so on. So that's really important. We need to make a decent website. There's still sound and color grading to do. We need to get the film classified in Australia and the UK, so that to play it in the cinemas, we do need to have it classified. The law requires that, so that's going to be sort of interesting. What classification will it get? In the film, there is a fair bit of swearing. Julian, I mean, I found it just a fascinating moment when he arrived at the Frontline Club in London to present the Afghan war logs. And for those that have watched the film last night, there's a chapter called Consequences. And Mark Davis, who was with him in 2010, I think he spent at least 6 weeks traveling with Julian, sharing a hotel room. So he was very intimately, just hanging out with Julian basically for that time. And I guess they built a bond and a friendship while Mark Davis was making his 2 excellent documentaries. So they were spending a lot of time together. And in that chapter, the Consequences chapter, we wanted to sort of highlight this aspect that Julian, he knew the risks, he knew what he was taking on and what might happen to him, and he did it anyway. And that way, by highlighting that, we're showing the incredible bravery and sacrifice that he did to bring that information to the public. So anyway, the Afghan War Logs press conference was at the Frontline Club in London, 2010. And when Julian comes up the stairs, and he's got the biggest leak that's ever been dropped in his backpack, right? And he goes to the top of the stairs of the Frontline Club, and the room is just full of press, just cameras everywhere, and he just goes, "Holy!" I won't swear in case this video gets suppressed or whatever, but yeah. So anyway, there's a bunch of swearing in the film. The collateral murder video, the soldiers are swearing, and then the collateral murder video itself is horrific, and it's literally a murder. So whether the film is going to get an MA or an R rating is kind of crucial. If it gets an R rating, I'm not sure if that makes it sort of have less appeal to the public, or will it have more? It'll certainly get the attention of, I guess your young adults and late teens, which could be good. So I guess hoping that it will get an MA rating. But yeah, anyway, that's one of the things we have to do, is have it classified. So another expense there to classify it in Australia and the UK before the release. I think someone asked a question. Glenn, did anyone try and disrupt or discourage you from doing the film? That's a challenging question. Like, I did receive a few sort of strange emails, and I did, like, not just one, like, I don't know, 6 or 7. They were kind of just really weird, like people sort of telling me these really far-fetched stories, and also people sort of smearing some of the people involved in the film, people that we'd interviewed. And I did wonder if were they sort of fake emails that someone has written to kind of try to at least distract me from sort of continuing the project, or sort of throw me off track, or sort of generate some doubt. So yeah, I read them and I just went, no, that sounds so far-fetched, and just beyond logic, and just dismiss them. But yeah, I mean, if they wanted to waste my time, they certainly did that, because you receive some long email and you sort of still want to read it and see what is it about. And but look, there's some creepy people out there with ridiculous ridiculous false sort of ideas about some of the key people in the campaign, spreading. Yeah, if you're on sort of Twitter, sort of a few months ago, there was a lot of that, and thankfully it all dissipated. But I guess it's just part of, like, this campaign is so huge and worldwide, and so many people involved, and then you'll get sort of fraudsters and people sort of sowing doubt, and whether that's sort of organized by some three-letter organization, I'm not sure. It's highly probable that it's a tactic that they're using to kind of undermine the movement. But yeah, other than that, not really. Obviously discouragement from negative comments and on Facebook, and stuff like that. But I must say, we had a lot of our memes on our Facebook page go just completely viral. From about July last year, we had memes that got 2 million reach and stuff like that. And it's Julian Assange's fantastic quotes. And what happened was, some of the quotes would trigger his opponents, would trigger his people that don't like him. They kind of seem to get triggered by us presenting Julian's beautiful words in this sort of quote of the day format with a natural background. People would write like, "Why are you presenting Julian's quotes as if he's a wise, insightful sort of luminary?" But the thing is, all that negative comments, rather than block them, I'm just like, well, I'll leave them there. And they helped those memes go viral, which helped our fundraising a lot. So all of that controversy and all of that sort of arguments below our social posts actually just helps the project, helps us fundraise, helps us get more reach, and helps us raise more awareness of Julian. So it's kind of handy that the way that works, the way that you've got all these opponents that will just criticize him and just sort of regurgitate all the typical smears and just write these awful comments underneath our meme posts, our beautiful quotes of Julian. But then other people are latching onto those and reading them, and we've had people, we've even had after, and keep in mind that we've been posting prolifically on social media Julian's quotes for about 2 years now, and I think we got up to we've done about 1,000 Julian memes. Julian is wise and brave. Yes, he is, Marta. A genius. But yeah, like posting all of these quotes of Julian every day, 3 times a day on all our different pages, we've noticed that some people have actually really connected with him just through that. They know nothing. They've said to us, like, I don't know anything about Julian Assange's situation. I don't know the story, but I've been reading his quotes and I actually connect with him. So that was like, there's this big spin-off benefit before the film was even had its premiere, that we have reached just millions and millions through our social media, and we've just been very active on there because we had to. Like that was how we crowdfunded, like a little bit over 50% of the cost of making the film was through our social media, through our GoFundMe crowdfunding. But the spin-off benefit, has been must be tens of millions of people we've reached with Julian's quotes, and I think that's fairly beneficial because people see that side of him, the wisdom, the insights, the great ideas, the idealism, and they can connect with that. So yeah, it's quite interesting how all of that has worked. Lorraine said, Hi, Anita. I say Julian is Australia's brilliant mind. Yeah, I totally agree. You know, we were at on Saturday. We went to the book reading, Dean Yates book reading, and so you had Dean Yates talking, and then David McBride, the Australian whistleblower, and John Shipton, Julian's father, and John did a terrific speech. He said, um, something along the lines of like Julian Assange is uh, like a genius comes out of the community. Like he's sort of like come out of the fabric of the country, and we have to recognize that. And that's something I certainly became aware of through the course of directing this film, interviewing all the people, and researching and reading and watching so many of Julian's interviews and speeches. Is I mean, such a genius, and to come up with this innovation of WikiLeaks, the anonymous Dropbox, but also to have this sort of idealism, this sense of like truth could end wars, and transparency for governments, privacy for individuals. Um, you know, just these huge ideas, but backed up with this incredible technical proficiency, this wizardry with encryption and with computers. And when you hear about his time at university, which is something we cover in the film, um, yeah, I mean, he was literally at university studying mathematics and physics, and was considered one of the brightest minds at the university. So he surely was. I mean, he was there because he was brilliant, and he didn't finish uni because he came up with this amazing invention called WikiLeaks. And it certainly is a genius, and he should be protected. He should be celebrated. He should be freed, compensated, and then he should win the Nobel Prize. I mean, you know, you'd have to be a complete dingbat or a psychopath to not recognize that, and that's what we have in our governments. Oh, I'm getting a bit political now. I better have a sip of my tea. Calm down. Thanks, Christine. Exactly. Yeah. Edith asks, do you have plans to make it with Spanish subtitles? Yep, absolutely. Like every language that we can manage, we're going to do it. So that's another job that's ahead, is to just gradually have it translated. Nice mug. Yeah, well, it's at this Airbnb. It's all right. You know, the one I have at home is like nicer. It's got a koala on the side. But this one's, yeah, it's kind of funky. Yeah, so the translations. So yeah, I mean, obviously to reach all different audiences, then we certainly want to translate it. It has to be done well. I know. I mean, I've had a bunch of people volunteer to translate, and I really appreciate that. But it is so crucial that the translation is done really, really well by professionals. Because if it's not translated quite right, you get all these interesting, like sort of strange warping of the actual statements. So yeah, we will have to cover the cost of getting professional translators that are very, very good at it, to do the whole. Like you need subtitles for Spanish for the entire 2-hour film. So yeah, a lot of effort and time and costs there, but that's something to do, because as you all know, like Julian Assange and WikiLeaks and is a full-on global issue that interests everyone in the globe. Something that's really interesting is that you know, places like consider the Middle East, right, where some of the biggest leaks, the Iraq war logs, the Afghan war logs, have been about the Middle East, and they've given a voice to those people. And so he is a hero to people in the Middle East, in places like Syria, um, Afghanistan, Iraq, um, other places that have just been demolished by the US, and that's quite fascinating that we could um, have a huge audience to the film in, in Arabic and places, these countries, but really any country. I don't see that there would be any country on the planet that doesn't have people who are aware of the work of WikiLeaks, that want Julian Assange free, that have some knowledge of the issue or have some interest in the situation. And so we do have to get it translated into every possible language. I'm not sure how many languages there are. Maybe someone can Google that, and write a comment. It must be hundreds, right? Like 250 or something, languages. So we'll just try to do as many as we can, and then therefore reach as much audience as possible. And Marta asks, will this documentary be played in mainstream cinemas, hopefully online too? Yeah, exactly. So the normal thing for a documentary, okay, is you go from festivals. You start with festivals because that's where you find the distributors, and that's where you gain distribution, and you also hopefully win some awards, which also helps you promote the film, get publicity, blah blah blah. So you do your festivals, and then you go to, once you get a distributor, the distributor takes it to the cinema. They do that work because that's like a massive job, and so much paperwork and negotiation, and sending the file to all the cinemas. Like, try to imagine this incredible job. Like, imagine if you wanted to do 1,000 cinemas in the US, the work involved with that. So you need a distributor to help you with that, to basically take care of that. So once you do your cinema release, if it gets a cinema release, then the next thing is you'll go to streaming, like pay per view. So once it's done at cinema, why do you do cinema? Because it's just more powerful on a big screen, big sound, live audience, all of these elements that make the experience more powerful. That's what happens in a cinema. And then you go to streaming, and then SVOD, which is subscription video on demand. And then the last sort of step is television these days. So we want to go through all those steps, but we want to sort of do it in an accelerated way. So, like, rather than spend maybe like a whole year is kind of typical in the festival circuit, we won't do a whole year of festivals. We'll just do like really short, but a lot of festivals in a short time, like maybe just 2 months of festivals, and a lot, maybe like I've entered a whole bunch. So hopefully we can have it in I don't know, a couple of dozen festivals over a 2-month period, and that will give it some more publicity, help us gain distribution. And then after we finish the cinema, the festival run, sorry, if it gains distribution, if the cinemas accept it, then we can have it out in that theatrical format. So hoping to do it in cinemas, especially in America, Australia, the UK, New Zealand, Canada, all the English-speaking countries first. And it's a big question: is how will it be well received in cinemas? Will people sort of spot it on an ad or social media, or their friends invite them or something, or they see it on a poster, and will they be intrigued? And that's a big question. Is it going to do well in cinemas? Firstly, is it going to be accepted by cinemas, which I think it will. I'm pretty confident that it will at least be shown by sort of art house cinemas, independent cinemas. Don't know about the mainstream yet, but we'll see. And then how well will it sort of attract people, intrigue people? And then you've got this other factor of, does the film sort of generate this sort of viralness? Like, do people watch it and talk about it? Are they shocked and saddened, and are they so disgusted and sort of emotionally affected by the film that they talk about it to their friends? and do they say, "Oh, I saw this film last night," and or the other day, and you've really got to see it. It changed my mind, and it shocked me, made me cry. If that happens, and then the film kind of has this viralness, that's what we're hoping for, then that could help the cinema run sort of go longer and be a wider, have a wider reach, and just we get more people watching the film. So that's a big question. And then then it would progress to streaming, and that's not as competitive, and we should certainly have a few offers of streaming. Like, for example, in the Middle East, you have Al Jazeera, who I think will be very interested. There'll be a massive audience in the Middle East for this film once it's fully translated to Arabic and other languages. And also, like, various countries are more political. Like, a lot of you would be aware of that. Like, Australia is pretty lax, even though Julian isn't Aussie. They're not sort of they're quite apathetic and just kind of chilled out. Like, she'll be right, mate, and someone else will take care of it and whatever. So, whereas if you look at France, okay, like this people, or Spain, like, I mean, people in certain countries are used to revolution. They've lived through revolutions, and they're very into demonstrating and getting into issues, protesting in the street, and so on. And so it'll be interesting to see how it's received in some of those countries, like France, for example. Will it have a bigger response there? So yeah, we'll take it through these stages, but try to do it as quickly as possible, because the faster it gets out to the masses, the more benefit for Julian, the more that we can help him and add to pressure. So, Marta, you're a fiery Hungarian. Very good. Hungary, somewhere I've never been. But yeah, so yeah, what else can I talk about? I was really excited to hear people clap during the film. That was kind of unexpected. I didn't realize that would happen. Like, I think 4 or 5 times that the whole audience sort of applauded in the middle of the film. Really interesting. And I'll tell you where one of those moments was. Some of you might have been aware of this character from Azerbaijan, Ilham Aliyev. It was about, I think, a year and a half, that Aliyev was interviewed by BBC television. And in that interview, the BBC interviewer was sort of criticizing him, of course, because Azerbaijan is considered to have one of the worst press freedom levels in the world. And so she was criticizing him, and he's not having any of it. And he goes, he says, "We have free media, we have free internet. And if you're going to ask me this question, may I also ask you one? Explain what happened with Assange. He's basically been destroyed in mind and body, and you did it, not us. So you have no moral right to criticize us when you, basically along those lines. I can't remember the exact words. Anyway, he just drops this huge line, and he criticizes this BBC reporter, and essentially the UK and the entire Western world, basically. And yeah, that the whole audience last night in the cinema just started clapping. So that was surprising. And then you had a bunch of other moments where the audience clapped. Another one was, and I kind of, once that happened, I sort of expected this particular line, which was George Christensen, an ex-Aussie politician who's now a journalist. So George Christensen, in the politics chapter, he's got this terrific line. He says, "How on earth did this get so far? Like, from day dot, Australian government should have said, no, 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 no. Assange is an Australian citizen and he's afforded every right of an Australian citizen. And how can it be that a foreign government can take an Australian citizen and prosecute them under a US law when he's not even in your bloody country? And I didn't get the exact words right, but yeah, everyone clapped at that line. Maybe it was the word bloody, because in Australia that's a sort of a common, a popular slang word. And so, George Christensen dropped that big line and the audience clapped. And that's really a nice thing about cinema. When you have a crowd of sort of like-minded people, you have this sense that you're sitting in there with people that have somewhat similar beliefs to you, and there's a sense of sort of community. And so that was, just really nice that everyone sort of clapped at certain moments, because they felt that they were connected with the other people in the cinema. So Christine says, that's why film is so important. It reaches people to impact the world in a way like no other. Yeah, look, it's such a powerful media, isn't it? I mean, I've been involved with film for nearly 10 years now with documentary. Initially with documentary screenings. I just started out hosting tiny little documentary screenings in a sort of a yoga room in Darlinghurst, Sydney. That's how I got into the documentary industry. And that built up, like the events built and got bigger and bigger. And then we started doing documentary screenings in Melbourne, Sydney, and then we added Byron Bay. And this is through my enterprise, Films for Change, educational enterprise. So then a few years after that, we were screening documentaries in 90 cities of the world. Then the pandemic came along, and we had to shut all of that down, and we went into streaming. So we have this streaming platform, filmsforchange.stream. And once we sort of got that kind of flowing pretty well, then I basically got incredibly inspired by Julian's situation and the story, and wanted to do something. So that's when the film started. And so this is my first documentary. I'm very aware of how powerful film is. If you consider the structure of a documentary, like compared to a speech, for example, there's a lot of events around Julian Assange which are speeches, and they're fantastic. I'm not saying that they're not powerful and effective, but when you go to hear a speech, it can be quite dry. There's no visuals unless they have a PowerPoint presentation, so when you have a documentary, well, you're basically getting these statements from people, as I was saying, 25 hours of interviews, and then you're cherry picking all of the best statements out of that from 25 people, and then putting them all together in a really organized way. And then you're enhancing it with cutaways, with visuals, with video. Like someone's talking about Julian at a particular time, you can put that up on the screen if you get permission for that, to use the footage, if someone provides it or you license it. And then you add music, and then you add animation. So if you compare like a speech event to a film event, like how much more powerful can a film be, because it has all these other elements that you bring in, and you've removed all of the sort of the extraneous detail or the waffle, and so you're assembling. Like I said to a few people during this process of editing, I guess I said it to the editors, what we're trying to do here is kind of we're trying to construct the greatest speech that's ever been made in Julian's benefit. the greatest 2-hour speech. And we're doing it by sewing together all these different people's statements and getting the best stuff and then putting it together and then enhancing it with the visuals and the music. So it's just incredibly powerful thing. And then on top of that, if you can use music and animation to really get in here to people's emotion, well, then you can have change, because that's how people change their mind. They're affected by the emotion of it. So yeah, film is so powerful. I mean, it's changed my perspectives. There's been so many documentaries that open my eyes to what's going on in the world. For example, like when I was 18 years old, I watched Baraka. Some of you might have heard of that, Baraka, Samsara. That was just like full on. I'm like, wow, look at the difference between like rich and poor. Look at the difference between, you know, nature, pristine nature, and you know, polluted monstrosity cities. And anyway, I'm going off on a tangent, but yeah, all these powerful films. Like another one is Unity. There's this incredible documentary by a US director, Sean Monson, called Unity. If you haven't seen that, have a look. If you watch Unity, you'll see some influences that I used in this film, particularly with the writing, with the words, with the last chapter of the film is kind of in that style, because I found that so powerful. Yeah, you know, films can change minds, can open people's perspectives, and it can change the world. I mean, it has. Like, there's examples of documentaries that have literally changed history. Like there's one from, I don't know, 20 years ago, How to Nail a Dictator, which literally nailed a dictator. A dictator ended up in jail because of what was in that film, the evidence in that film. And Blackfish, if you've seen it, like, has anyone seen Blackfish? That led to SeaWorld's stocks going down, right? And less people going to SeaWorld, and SeaWorld having to change the ways that they treated orcas, or even the use of orcas, the entrapment of orcas in these tiny swimming pools. Like, it's just diabolical, you know. And you know, so there's just so many powerful documentaries. Like, look, think about like another one is Dominion. A friend of mine in Australia made this animal rights film, Dominion. If you haven't seen that, like, check that out as well. That's on our website, by the way, filmsforchange.stream. Yeah, so, you know, film, incredibly powerful medium, and if it's done, you know, half decent, it can just absolutely change the world. And you know, a film could free Julian Assange. I mean, it's just one more thing on top of this massive global campaign, and all these things being done by so many people in all parts of the world, and the vigils and the artists and the films and the music and the journalists and authors. I mean, it's all a massive campaign, and this film will just be one more thing that might contribute to that. I think we've got another question from Edith. Have you asked the W. Holland F to help with some monetary funds to promote Take the documentary in the US and other countries? We are willing to see it in Mexico. No, I haven't, but you know, at this stage, like, we are sort of trying to work out the best way to get the film out to the biggest possible audience. And you know, there's different options for that, and we'll just certainly be investigating, like, and weighing up, like, are we going to go through a traditional distributor, or are we going to organize the screenings ourselves and have, or is some philanthropist going to come along, or some charity going to come along and help sort of promote, or even cover costs of advertising or something like that. Like, that would be awesome, because it's all about, like, you know, how many people can we reach and how quick can we get it out there. So and yeah, we'll show it in Mexico as soon as we can. So yeah, any other questions that people have? I guess I'll wrap up pretty soon. and get some breakfast. But really appreciate everyone tuning in. And yeah, just, I mean, it was such a powerful event last night, like so exciting, so much unity and collaboration and community there, and just wonderful to have everyone there, and the support for the film, and to have it out now and be able to share it with people. It's just a great feeling after all that work. So and as I said last night, like this couldn't have been possible without all the crowdfunders. We had, I think, just over 2,300 people have contributed to the film financially to make it possible. And we managed to put them all up, apart from some of the latest ones haven't added to the credits, but we had them all up on the screen, right, in the credits. So the credits at the end of the film, which goes for about 3.5 minutes, we worked out a way to sort of put all those 2,000 plus names up there. It moves a bit quick, but if you watching, you can sort of spot your name, and that was nice, I think, for the audience to see that all those names and all that support. Marta's asking, where was the screening? Well, it was in Melbourne, Cinema Nova Melbourne, and it was part of the Melbourne Documentary Film Festival. So yeah, I thought it was a fitting location for the first screening, the world premiere, because Julian, of course, Julian Assange, lived in Melbourne, went to university at Melbourne, and there's so much support in Melbourne. So a good sort of place to start. Thanks, Glenn. Nice one on the credits. Yeah, yeah. I was like, it took a little bit of sort of editing wizardry to, you'd think it would be easy to put 3 columns of names on the credits, but we had to really fiddle around it. The software didn't really want to do that, so we found a workaround. I mean, Richard Frankel, one of our editors, did a terrific job figuring out how to get all those names up there, and then and put them sort of in some logical order. So really glad to get that up there. And we'll update the credits, before the cinema release, like anyone else that contributes will try to get their names up there, because I think, yeah, I really, obviously we really appreciate everyone's contribution, and we want to recognize them for that. So yeah, I mean, I guess I'll finish up with 2 things. One thing that I said last night when they were presenting the award that I received, I said this fantastic quote of Julian Assange, which is, there is unity in the oppression, and there must be absolute unity and determination in the response. I said that quote, and I just said that there's been so much unity to make this film possible in such a short time. So that was, yeah, that was a quote that I said. And I just want to finish up with, before we shut down the live stream and have breakfast, I'll just read this one poem that I wrote, which is in the film. It's called The Trust Fall, which is obviously the title of the film, right? Okay. If he knew that they had committed crimes, and he had a river of leaks on his computer screen revealing their felonies, if he knew that their empire is run by dark 3-letter orgs and CEOs in camo gear, if he knew that they would chase him to the ends of the earth, if he knew that they are rich, angry old men capable of hideous acrimony and vengefulness, if he knew that humans have an ability to realize that they've been deceived, to finally and critically and profoundly and devastatingly open our eyes, then this is a trust fall, an incredibly brave trust fall, and we are the ones who are meant to be doing the catching. So that was kind of the poem that where the title was taken from, and that poem is in the film. So thanks for tuning in, folks. Like, it was really enjoyable to chat with you and answer your questions, and I appreciate you tuning in and your support of the film, your interest. And let's all work together to keep raising awareness and put pressure on these backwards bent governments to just buckle down and free this heroic journalist. He's suffering incredibly. I mean, I can't believe that it's still at this stage. He's still arbitrarily detained indefinitely. It's just so obscene. And you know, there's only one word. There's another poem. I won't read the whole thing, but another poem I wrote, which is sort of describing this, is you can use any kind of word for this. I mean, you could call it malicious, obscene, disgusting, appalling, blah, blah, blah. But the only word that is appropriate for this situation, for the people responsible for Julian's incarceration and his persecution and his the psychological torture of him, the only word is evil. That's what we're dealing with. These are evil people. So they have to be exposed. They have to be put in jail. And Julian needs to be freed, compensated, and collect all of his awards and all the accolades that he deserves. So thanks for tuning in, folks. I'll look forward to catching up with you again soon, and have a great day or evening wherever you are. Take care. Free Julian Assange. Bye-bye.